Hi everybody, how are we doing? My name is James. Again, thank you for hanging out with us. And I want to say thank you to Autodesk and Fusion for letting me hang out for an hour or two. Okay, just wanted to let you guys know that we are recording these, so hopefully this will show up on the YouTube site. If you haven't already, you should check it out because we did another webinar back in June. Definitely encourage you guys to check this one out because we're going to be kind of picking up where we left off. So this one was 3D printing with Fusion 360 located in the Autodesk Fusion 360 YouTube page. All right, so this is basically what we're going to be doing today. Let me shrink this down here. Okay, so here's what's going on. Last time, I showed you guys step by step how to make a model like this. This is a two-part model that we can do dual colors with. And we kind of ran out of time there at the end, so I didn't really have much time to say, you know, how do we export these and how do we use them in some of the built-in 3D printing applications. So we're going to touch base on that, basically how to export these, the importance of parts versus components, some of the built-in tools, and then we're going to switch over to breaking up large models. This was a question that came up in the last webinar. If you have a very large model, this is a 4-foot model, a 4-foot bow, and you wanted to break this up into smaller manageable pieces for your 3D printer, I'm going to show you how to cut it up, show you how to make interlocking parts, and how to put tolerances on those parts so that they'll slide together easily. And we're going to use things like the parameters function. And to finish things up, I figured we touched base a little bit on the EditFace feature, which is a really cool way to just add an organic look to a surface of a model. And I figured while we're at it, I can show you how to, you know, wrap text around a curved or an organic non-uniform surface. So that's basically it. That's what we're doing today. And again, it gets a little quiet, you know, when I'm talking for an hour. So if you guys have any questions or you want to see anything done, definitely let us know. We can stop what we're doing and try to address it. All right. So let's start out with this model. Again, this model is on YouTube, so if you guys want to know how to do this, there's step-by-step how to get here. So basically, here's where we are. We spent a lot of time, we modeled, and came up with this, and now we need to send this to our printer. So we have a couple of options. And we, along the way, created components. So you can see here, this is what one component will look like. Here's the other one. So now we need to send this to our printer. So we have a couple of options. We can either click 3D print and actually physically select each part, or you can do it the way I like to do it, is just exporting it directly. So let's start out like this. So let me show you what's actually in these components. So this one component has two bodies. This is important because, well, obviously it's two pieces, so it's going to be two bodies. But because it's grouped into one component, we can export this entire thing as one STL. So if we right-click on our component, let me start that over again. Right-click on the component, save as STL. We have the option to save this as one file. So this one file will now contain these two bodies grouped together. We also have the option to save them as two separate files, or one file per body. So as many bodies as you have in here, it'll create separate files on your hard drive. But because this is a dual color print, we're going to leave it as one file. Now from here, we can just say OK and save it to our hard drive, or we can actually send it to our 3D print utility. So we have built-in utilities we can select here. The newest one is Print Studio. This is actually based on the Spark engine. So this is really cool. This is Autodesk's new print utility. So we can load our model up in here, select our printer, select our parameters for printing, and just send it straight to the printer from here. Or if you guys want to do any extra stuff, there's Mesh Mixer. This I use frequently, so you can take this model, save it, load it directly into Mesh Mixer, do any post-processing, scale it, repair it, do whatever you need to do in here. This is also really good. And from here, you can also send it straight to the printer. But most frequently, I just save them as STLs to the hard drive. Now we can also, I've had a lot of clients want files other than STLs, like STP or, let me see what else is in here. To do that, we simply
Hey James, I have a quick question for you that just came across. Is there a particular reason that you don't export all the components out at one time, and why you're separating them out?
You can. The reason is for this particular model, you can export everything out at once. Other programs like it came from 123D and stuff, Autodesk 123D, when you save an STL or whatever, it's taking everything in your entire project and combining it into one STL. And you can do that here. You can do it up top on your presentation, or this presentation is actually the name of the file. You can do it up top on the header and save as STL here, and it'll save all these bodies into one STL. But because along the modeling process, we end up with tons of bodies, and I have a couple different renders and stuff in here, I don't want all those grouped together into one STL. So I just kind of strategically modeled everything along the way to be, this is one file, this is another file, which is why I grouped them over here into components to be exported in individually, so that later I can load this file into my slicer, assign it to one extruder, and then load the second file into my slicer, line them up, and then assign that to a second extruder to print them out as a dual color model.
Oh, okay.
Did that kind of answer the question? And we can go over that later too, how you actually take these files and throw them into your slicers and stuff and combine them together to make dual color prints. If you're just starting out to printing, a lot of the times you're not going to really do the dual color stuff right now. You're just going to do a single model, which I actually have a single print right here. So let's say I modeled everything and got to this point. Yeah, technically there's just one body in here, I think. No, there's a bunch of bodies. But you wouldn't want to export all these individually. If you're doing a single print, you would just do a single file. I think I had mesh mixture selected, so it should load up. So yeah, you can see this will be just a single file loaded that we can print. So there's no dual color, there's only one single extruder. It's just typical, straightforward printing. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah, it did.
So
that looks like that answers the question. Yeah.
And again, if you're not doing STLs, STLs is the most common thing right now, but if you wanted a more, a file that maybe a CNC machine or something like that would use, you would want to export. So you again would right click here and go export. And from there you can select a number of different formats. STP, I don't have a ton of experience with extra formats, but this is pretty much what people are always requesting from me, because they can put it into their CNC machines and stuff like that and actually push and pull on the surfaces. STLs don't really give you that ability. Okay, so I tell you what, while we're in here, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys what I was talking about with dual colors. So like I said, we went all the way through the process and we put everything in the components. And there's some other projects along the way I can show you the importance of components. But for this one, since we're just kind of picking up where we left off, let me go ahead and show you. If we export this as an STL, I'm not going to load it into a print utility right now. I'm just going to save it. And I already have some in here, so let's go new blue. Actually, it was red, it doesn't matter. And this one will be new red. Just to show you guys the current files I made. And now we have a couple different options for dual color printing. I don't want to get too far into it because it's not Autodesk stuff. There is, we have the Autodesk Print Studio and Mesh Mixer. But for dual color stuff, I use Slicer and we use some other programs. So let's do a quick, just 1 minute on that so you guys can see what I was talking about. Okay, so here's a Slicer. A Slicer is just a program that will, turn your model into a 3D printable G-code. So now we're going to add, here's the two new files that we just created. So here's my model. Typically, you would have a single color model, so this would be it. Then you would set up your parameters, you'd hit print. But because this is a dual color, I can now double click on the model, load a new part in. So here's the red, and now we have two colors. So I can select my first model, tell it to print the first extruder, the second model, the second extruder. So now we have a dual color print. So now just like you do a regular model, you set everything up, you hit print, and then your dual-headed machine will print each model individually and come up with two colors. And Fusion's great because we can quickly create dual color, three color, however many color models you want. So that was a quick tutorial on just dual color stuff. And again, that was Slicer, was the name of the program. Cura has a similar process, and matter control. Anybody have any questions about that? So that was about all I really wanted to touch on with this model. Last time, the hour went by so quickly, we got to this point, and we didn't really get to touch on what to do after we had our components and how to export and stuff like that.
So there's one question that came up about the dual colors. So it's around, does Print Studio do multiple colors? How does it handle that? And or do you need support for that?
I don't have a supported printer currently for Print Studio. Now, I don't know if it has dual colors. I didn't see an option set up. So right now, the printers we support are the Dremels, MakerBots, PrinterBots, Type 8, and the Ultimaker. Looking at these, I know MakerBot has a dual color machine.
Yeah, that's the only one that that I know of that we have supported or will soon be supported, because I have the next version of this, which is in beta right now, and it will be supporting one dual color, but it's going to depend on, I think it'll probably end up depending on which printer you have, right?
Yeah, and again, this is something that, this just came out, so I fully expect it to grow and become just like, Fusion was in the beginning.
Yeah, I know they're working all the time to add new printers and such. So.
Yeah. And a lot of these programs that have been around forever, they're just now getting to the point where we can do dual color stuff. If you guys are doing Cura, the new Cura engine, which is actually Ultimaker, which is supported by the Spark, same process. You load up, except for doing the whole double clicking on the model once it's loaded, you just load up both models, which will be on the plate all messed up looking, but then if you right click out here, you can say merge, dual extrusion merge, and there we go. So then you can go through, set up your properties for both extruders. You're not actually assigning an extruder for each one, you're just setting up the properties over here, then hitting print.
So I think this will probably this is another question that came up, so when you print those like that, when it's dual extruded, are they actually separate pieces, or are they pretty much fused together?
They are fused together. There's actually a setting. Each slicer handles that differently. But yeah, as long as you're properly calibrated, they will come fused together. Somewhere, I don't have a ton of experience with Cura, but somewhere in here there is settings for your dual extrusion overlap. So anyway, yeah, when you dual extrude, it will overlap slightly to kind of blend the two pieces together. But yeah, as long as you're properly calibrated, it's just like putting one layer on top of the other. So as long as all your layers stick together properly, then the two models should stick together the same. Because these there's no tolerance, there's no space in here. So as your machine's running through, it stops, of course, and switches heads and comes back and just continues right where it left off. So there shouldn't be, as long as you're calibrated and the settings are right, there shouldn't be a gap here. Dual's kind of, I mean, it's been around a long time. It's got a lot of problems still, but I mean, it works good.
I think it's probably safe to say that a lot of these settings are going to be dependent on the machine that you've got and the software that's supported.
Yeah, completely dependent on all these separate settings in the slicers and your machine and what type of extruder you're using. It's a big mess. And you can do, let's see if I locked it up last time I tried this. These are a bunch of just dual color stuff I made over the past. So you can do like cool ribbing and stuff, do different colors. I took a popular model that is on Thingiverse, this guy here, and actually cut it up into dual colors. Let's see if I can render it without freaking the system out. Probably not, because there's a bunch in there. It's not going to like it. All right, and yeah, if anybody is curious too, there's something called Modifiers. If you're into dual colors, you can ask me. And instead of actually modeling two parts, let me close this out. Instead of modeling two parts, you can just create like a, let me see if I can do this quickly. You can just create a box over something. New body. So something like this. Let me get rid of the ball though so you know what's going on. This is from previous models. All right, so if I loaded this into my 3D print software slicer, if I put these two models in here and loaded this box as a modifier, I could tell the slicer program that everything this box touches and intersects, print it as a different color. So it's kind of a cheater way of dual color modeling without actually doing all the tedious modeling. So if you guys are interested in 3D or two-color modeling, look up modifiers, because modifiers are awesome. They're really powerful. You can basically take any Thingiverse model, put it into Fusion, and then build modifiers on top of it, on top of a currently made STL. Export all these modifiers into your slicing program, and then dual color print with that. I've done cool things like that with like the Make a Fair robot. I was able to color his eyes and the symbol on his chest and his arms and legs a different color. Okay, so if you guys have any more questions about that, we can definitely come back. But let's touch base on this. All right, this is another question that came up during the last webinar, is how would you take large models and break them up into smaller pieces for your printers? Because most printers nowadays are only 6, 8, 10, 12 inches. So I'm going to show you quickly how we did that. This was previously sliced up. I've already printed this, so this is a 4-foot bow. But I went back into history a little bit so I can show you guys kind of the process of how we do it. So components. I know this may seem a little daunting at first when you guys are getting into Fusion, because you have all these options over here on the side. There's bodies that fill up all these boxes and components. The biggest thing is learning the importance of bodies and components. It not only keeps things organized, but it's going to help you later with exporting your models and just unlocking features in Fusion if you can put stuff into a component. One quick thing that I like is when you have stuff in components, I have 3 components here. You can move them around. You can't do that with a body. And then you can just hit revert to put them back to where they were. So if you were modeling in here and you wanted to do something and this is in the way, instead of hiding, you can just move stuff out of the way. And this also enables the whole animation section because you have components you can work with now. So the goal of this is about 4 foot long. I know the centerpiece will fit on a printer. And I have a 12-inch printer. So I want to split these up into 2 sections. So I want to have 2 on each side. And because this is a weird shape, last time I printed this model, I printed it standing up like this and cut them. But the problem I had, because a printer prints in layers this way, it was a very weak bow. So it broke a couple times at some of the meetups and some of the events I went to when people were playing with it. So this time I want to print it laying down this way. The problem with that is this is a very large, weird shape. So it's going to be hard to print this without generating a lot of support material. But if we split it straight down the middle, it's a pretty symmetrical design. It shouldn't create any support. So today we're going to split this down the middle and then cut this into intersecting pieces. So splitting it down the middle, that's the easy part. We can just use split body. So we're going to go to Modify, Split Body, select the bodies we want to split. Actually, let me throw that center piece in there too, so I want to split that. And then select our splitting tool. We can either build a splitting tool, but because I modeled this with it directly on the origin, or on the plane over here, I can use the plane as a splitting tool. So I'm going to select my plane. It draws this big, funny red circle. Well, all that's telling us is it's using the whole plane, and this is kind of like an infinity circle. It just goes on. And we can see it perfectly slices it in half. So I'm going to say OK. And now you can see there's a line here splitting the model in half. Going back to bodies and components, another great feature about components to keep things organized. As we go along and we're modeling, we're adding render colors or whatever you want to call it, appearance colors and stuff to our models. This currently has like carbon fiber or whatever. That can be a little difficult when you're modeling. So if you have everything in the components, you can turn on something called component color cycling toggle. And this will color code automatically each component, which is great because you can see the component over here is green, which is also corresponding green here. And then everywhere in my timeline where I've done something to this body, it's highlighted in green as well. So it's just another way to kind of help organize the process and so that way you don't get lost in your timeline and all the stuff over here, all the bodies. And it also helps us to kind of organize these a little bit better when we export. So we know now this right side is one entire green body, but it's actually split up into two. So let's work now on just one of these. So this whole green body is currently split up into two bodies. So I could stop here and export these individually as STLs, or even click on the entire component and export them individually and be done with it. But I want to be a little more organized than that. So I'm going to take both of these bodies, highlight them, right-click, and say, create components from bodies. Now what this should do is make two new components within this drop-down component. All right, so now we have the green component that we had before broken into two separate components, two shades of purple. Does that make sense? So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4 different components. And these two components are just organized under the header right component. I know it gets confusing when we start dealing with all these different drop-down boxes, but it just makes the modeling process a lot easier, I think. Because now when I export and I wanted, say, just this blue piece, I can look and see exactly where it is and then export that directly. So let's go ahead and do that to these other pieces. So here's the left piece, the bodies. We can right-click on it and say create components from bodies. And the same thing with this one. So now we have the bow broken up into two 2-foot sections, and then this little handle in the middle, actually 4 2-foot sections. But I don't have a 4-foot printer, so we got to keep going. Shrink this down, get a little more manageable. Now I want to break this up into 2 pieces for my printer. So I think somewhere right in here should be good. So we're going to create a nice interlocking piece. So these two can you can make them snap together, you can make them puzzle pieces, anything you want to make these two fit together. And I'm going to show you how to do that. We're going to create a line, or actually we're just going to make a sketch in this area. So right now we're going to create the sketch plane. And then somewhere up here, we're going to draw a line cutting these in half. I can't see it because my sketches are turned off. Let me clean this up by turning off all these sketches. Okay. Sorry. One more time. It's not fun unless you do it twice, right? Okay, so here was the line we created. I could stop here and just slice it with that, but since we want to make these connecting, let's do a little something different with it. Let's do something like this. So we're going to have it kind of intersect like that. I'm going to cut or trim this. So if we go to Sketch, Trim, we can trim these 2 pieces and get those out of there. So I'm going to break these 2 pieces up using that line. And to do that, we're going to go into our Sculpt Environment, and we're going to use a plane. So there's many ways to tackle a problem with Fusion. We could have just thrown a plane in here and manipulated the plane, but this way I'm just going to draw out exactly what I want and then turn this into a plane. So to do that, we're going to create and extrude just like we would in regular model mode. I think it showed us a picture of what it's going to look like. So yeah, you can see there's a line and then it extrudes out and creates a plane. So then we're going to select our profile or the plane or the line. And we're going to go ahead and extrude this out. but I want it on both sides, so I'm going to choose symmetrical for the direction. Symmetrical just means even in both directions, obviously. And there's a couple options in here as well. You can do two-sided if maybe the model wasn't as far. Symmetrical, okay. So here we are. We have our bow, and we have this weird little tool that we made that we want to cut this with. Now, if this was just a rendering project and we weren't worried about printing tolerances or anything, we could just cut this like this and be done with it, because a plane, I'm sure it has some theoretical thickness, but it's not going to affect, visually, if that makes sense. I'll show you what I mean here in a minute. But because we're printing this, we got to put a tolerance. A tolerance just means when we split this up and I print it on my printer, I'd have to have a really good printer to get it to where I don't need to sand on these to get them to fit nice and snug together. Odds are they're gonna slip together, and there's gonna be, some little areas that need sanding, and I'll have to do some work to it to get this to fit nice and tight. We can reduce some of that post-printing work by making this thicker. So we're going to do that by first finishing this form and then going create, thicken, and then we're going to, let me backtrack. Okay, so we can thicken this. Let's go to where our bodies are. We're going to thicken this entire plane. 0.2 is usually where I hang out most of the time when I'm doing tolerances. 0.2, because I print everything around 0.2 millimeters. So that means, or 0.2 layer height. So if I do 0.2, we should be like 1 layer height subtracted. That'll give me enough play in the models so they should slip together fairly nicely. I mean, I'm still probably going to have to do a little bit of cleanup, but not nearly as much if I had no tolerance in there at all. But let's say I printed this and they didn't fit together right, and I wanted more tolerance or less tolerance. Instead of just plugging in a 0.2 value in here, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to go to Modify and change parameters. Parameters just mean all throughout this model I have values set up. Every time you click and drag a box or a sketch and it puts numbers in there, it stores all these numbers in here for you. Every fillet, every extrude has got values. We're going to go down to the user parameters and create a new one. And we're going to create, let's just call it print, because I already have tolerance in TOL. But for this example, we're just going to name this print. You can name these anything you want. And for the expression, we're going to call it 0.2, because 0.2 is the value that we want to use. So now we have this user parameter called print set up for 0.2 millimeter. Same as algebra. It's like if you're using x equals 2 or whatever, you defined a parameter in there. So now go back to what we were doing before, and we're going to go thicken. And instead of typing in 0.2, we're just going to type in print. And all that did was reference our parameters, and it's putting 0.2 in here. So now we see we're thickened by 0.2. And we're going to go back to that in a minute. I'm going to show you why that was important. All right, so now we want to take this body and we want to split it using that tool. We can't use the split feature anymore because this is a weird shape. Split's going to want to do a straight plane. I mean, we could use the split tool and select this face, but all this work we just did, thickening and making this fancy cutaway, it won't matter. So instead, we're going to do a combine. If we go Modify, Combine, and if we take this body and we want to subtract or cut away this tool, and we want to keep that tool too because we want to do the same thing for the other body. So we're going to selected our body, selected our tool. I want to make sure it's cutting it. The thing I always say in my head is you're taking this part and you're doing this to this part. So you're taking your target, you're doing this to the tool, or with the tool, if that makes sense. And we want to keep the tool. Okay, so now if I shut off this tool, you can see that there's a hole there, which is great. So let's go ahead and do that to the other side. Same thing, we can right-click a lot quicker, say Repeat Combine, select our body, select our tool. It's already uncut, and it's already on Keep Tools from our previous operation. and say OK.
Hey, James, a question that just came in was there any reason that you decided to cut it the way you did and not use some sort of like dovetail or like
just simplicity. I would never, I wouldn't do this. I would probably, I've seen there's a lot of those, the triangular, the ones that kind of fit together like this. If we stick it together, it's not going to stay together, obviously. I do a lot of finishing work with the models, so I would glue this and then, fix the seams and all that stuff. But yeah, if this was a project I was working on, I would look to see if this is being pulled out this way. I'd want to make it designed to where, these parts interlock together.
Cool.
But for the reasons of tutorial, no, I just wanted to do something quick. It was just much easier to do a couple straight lines in there versus boring you guys with my inability to make a professional-looking
model a dovetail really quickly.
Yeah. So here we are.
Missing something.
And this is a 0.2 tolerance in here. So let's say we printed this and it wasn't enough, or maybe it was too much tolerance, and you're like, man, I wish I could go back and change that. You can really easily without doing any modeling. All we do now is go back to the Modify, change parameters. And then we're going to go down to our user parameter that we created. My laptop is dying right now. I have all these projects open. So it'd probably be best to close this presentation one in a minute. Okay, so go down to our parameters. Now if we go to print, the parameter that we set up, and we change this, say, let's do something dramatic so you can really see the change, to a 1, hit enter. It's going to go through the history from where we applied this and follow up with all the modeling that we did previously and change the tolerance. So it's really cool. So if you printed these two parts, because you can see this bow is going to be composed of several parts. So if you get done with your first two and you line them together and you're like, oh man, there's a huge gap here. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. You can go back. If you have a really good printer, you can do a low tolerance of 0.1. Or if you have a horrible printer, you can do like a 5. So it's just a cool feature, especially when you have tons of cutouts all throughout this model and you have parameters set up in here, or you have tolerances set up in all these different areas. If you realize, oh man, all that work I did setting up a 0.2, I should have did a 0.4, you can quickly and easily change it here. And it'll apply it to everywhere that you have that print value stored. So let's go back to 0.2. Everybody get that? And this whole parameter section, you can use this everywhere for any value. And you can do like, you can add and subtract stuff to it too. Let me see if I can show you what I'm talking about. So here's the thicken. So we thickened it by print. Say if just this one section we knew was different than all the rest of the prints, we can even do like print plus 0.2. So you can add and subtract, or you can get really technical. You can say print plus another tolerance you have set up somewhere. So we had TOL. So that worked as well. Now it's 0.4 because print equals 0.2 and TOL equals 0.2. Okay, I'm getting way too far ahead now. All right. So now we have this body cut. Where's my time? And we want to do that same thing I did last time where I turned these into two separate components. So what are we working on? We're working on the orange, yellow color. Here we go. So now we have two components that should contain two bodies. And the same thing, create components from the bodies. Right click, components from the bodies. So now we have this bow, which has manageable pieces for 3D printer. Each one's 12 inches. My printer is 300 millimeters by 300, so 12 by 12. So these will work on mine. If you had a 6-inch, the previous model I had it broken up into 8-inch pieces. So it was like 11 pieces total. 5 each side, 1 in the middle. But again, you can do any type of design you want in here. You can go back into history and change that. And hopefully it should follow through. So if you want to move stuff around. Of course, it doesn't do what I want it to do. You get it. Okay. And here's something else too. You can, for this model in particular, this doesn't apply to everything you guys do. We applied this little non-dovetail, or whatever you want to call it, quick, easy sketch. If I want to do the same thing over here, but I want to keep everything kind of uniform, since we're working in a perfectly symmetrical environment, just the way it was modeled, I can take this and mirror it over there. So turn the bodies back on. So I'll take my tool, make sure I select the whole body, then select the mirror plane, which is this plane, and it automatically throws it over there. So I can hit OK. And now I can quickly cut it. And since it's thickened and mirrored off of this one, it still has the same print parameter stored to it. So if I change print, this will change as well. So now I can combine, select the body, select the tool, make sure it's cutting, keep it. Right click, I'm going to repeat that whole step. Select the body, select the tool, make sure it's cutting, keeping the tool. And then same thing with my pieces here. Create components from bodies. And create components from bodies. Now if I turn off these tools up here, or the bodies, so there. Now we have a bow that's broken up into many pieces that can fit on a printer. Because they're each components, we can drag them all around, check them out.
Hey, another question, James, that came in. Do you have any recommendations on epoxies or glues to use when, with kind of PLA or ABS?
Yeah, I do. PLA, acrylic cement. It's called acrylic cement. Let's do Amazon. I'm sorry, guys. I know we're going on Amazon now.
Hey, that's okay. Yeah, this is just tools to help people out, right? We can tell you've been searching for some epoxy there.
Yeah. Acrylic cement. For PLA, this stuff is amazing. It's water-based. I use number 4. So this is number 3. But anyway, it comes out looking like water. It comes with the little needle applicator. The one I bought did. So you have this little needle applicator thing. You can either squeeze it on a joint, so you can just use it like regular like super glue, but it's not a glue. It's like a solvent or whatever. So it's going to melt the two pieces together to create a really strong bond. So this is a little trick that I found a couple of 3D friends of mine. This stuff is amazing. We use it all the time now. So that's for PLA. It'll work on ABS, but for ABS, you can just use 2-part epoxies by this guy. DevCon is stuff you can get at your Home Depot stores or your home improvement stores. 2-part epoxies work great.
So I just saw it on your screen a second. Yeah, I just saw it on your screen a second ago, but a comment came in over the question part and said they just use JB Weld when they want to do it. So some people are doing that too.
JB Weld?
Yeah.
Yep. If you want to hide your seams too, I have some. If you check out my website, it shows how I made this bow and how I glued it all together and how I seamed it together. To hide the seams, you're going to use. I use Epoxy Sculpt. Same thing. These are a bunch of 2-part materials, so that way you know you're getting a good strong bond. So Epoxy Sculpt is like modeling clay, but it's 2 parts. You put them, mix them together thoroughly, just like JB Weld, and then squeeze that or press it onto all the seams. When it dries, it's rock hard. You can sand it. This is really good stuff. You can hide a lot of imperfections with this.
And
okay.
Hey, James,
so
just a reminder when we get to the end, make sure to give people your website too, because a couple of people are asking now too.
Yeah, definitely. I'm immersed in 3D. So immersed, the letter N, 3D is pretty much my website, all my social media, Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff. My Fusion 360 gallery name. Okay, real quick. I know we only got about 15 minutes left. I wanted to go through. Anybody have any 2-color questions while we're here on this particular model? I want to close it out because this is what's slowing me down. I have all these models preloaded, and it doesn't like it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close this. Every time I go off script and try to do something like close it, I'm like, come on.
Yeah, no worries. Feel free to close a few of those down.
I told you, see?
Oh, there you go. Too much open.
No, it happened last time in the same file.
Oh, really?
So if you guys tune into the webinar from last time, the same thing happened. It's just I loaded so many models into that program or that particular file, and it didn't like it. So I think we'll finish up by just doing, I don't need that bow anymore, doing some of the EditFace features. That seemed to get a lot of attention last time. People really liked it. So let me find out where I have all my stuff. Okay, EditFace. EditFace is amazing, and it's overlooked a lot because you have to have your history turned off or you have to be in direct modeling mode to use it. So this is basically just a square or a cube. Let's see if I can go back to my history. So let's start fresh. So I'm going to create just a box out here. You know what, let's go back because I want a more symmetrical box. So let's do it with sketch mode. That way I can have more control over what I'm doing here. Center point. All right, so let's do 50 by 100. Turn my sketches on so I can see what's going on. Extrude this out. I'm not doing anything set here. I'm just kind of playing around. Turn off these previous projects so it doesn't confuse you. Okay. So you created a cube or whatever shape you want. You have to have a flat surface in order for this to work. Make sure I'm on. Okay. I want to create a direct modeling feature on this. So I'm going to right click on this and say convert to a direct modeling feature. And then you can see we have this new feature created with a little blue thing above it. And by the way, this is blue and it looks different because we're still on component mode. So if I turn component cycling off, you can see what it looks like normally. So now we created this base feature. So if we double click on that base feature, and you can see it says finish base feature, it means we're now in the base feature mode. We're in direct modeling mode, so we're not recording history currently. Now we have this new tool in here called EditFace. EditFace is great because a lot of the projects I've done in the past for home interiors and stuff involved like trim work and little flowers and stuff. And I was having troubles getting like organic, curvy structures without painfully modeling on top and subtracting and just doing a lot of work. With EditFace, you can take the face of this and edit it just like it throws like a T-spline plane on top. So now you can take this and add subsections or cutouts. Select the points you want to manipulate. I'm just randomly selecting stuff here. And then push and pull them to kind of tweak and modify that surface, and then hit OK. So now we have a cool kind of organic looking surface. This is amazing because basically the whole bow was done. Here we go again. I'm going to go off script. No, I don't want to save the backup. So the whole bow was done with EditFace. All I had was this one sketch. I took a picture off the internet, basically. I don't know if it's in here. Yeah, right here. So I took a picture and then sketched on top of it. So here we go. Here's the picture, and here's the sketch. So let me turn the picture off. So the entire bow is just this. I took each section, extruded it out, just like we did on this EditFace program, or EditFace project. And then once it was extruded out, I just kind of played around with the surface and did a bunch of edit faces and stuff on it. So the entire bow is made out of just that. EditFace, awesome. Can't say it enough. Okay, real quick. We got about 10 minutes. I'm going to quickly throw some text on top of this, hopefully if all goes well, and show you another quick little modeling thing to get text to follow this curved surface. So to do that, I'm going to go to Sketch, Text, select my working plane. We're going to call this Fusion. You know, I do that every time. It's just habit. Call the text Fusion. Get rid of the height. And of course, it's going to put the text over here. That doesn't matter. Now we're going to edit the sketch. We're going to first finish that base feature. Make sure it was good. All right, why can't I edit the sketch? All right, well, it's not working currently. Let's try that again. Let's try it this way. It's because I modeled the box upside down. Yeah, edit sketch. Now I can take these letters and explode them, hopefully. Explode text. And that's going to turn each letter into their own sketch. Take the letters, extrude them out. We're going to do this the cheating way. I'm going to just create bodies and move them over there. It's easier. And I'm just going to move these into place. Normally I would, you know, model it the right way, but we're kind of in a hurry. Shouldn't have put the fusion all the way over there. Ugh. Ugh. All right, hold on. That's better. All right. Now we're back. Of course I didn't put the eye in there. It doesn't matter, we're going to cut that off anyway. So I'm getting really sloppy right now, but anyway, this is where I wanted to get you guys to show you this part. All right, turn the sketches off. So we have this, the eye's a little messed up, it's no big deal. So to get this to conform to this feature, this face, I'm going to do a combine intersect. Again, I use combine intersect all the time. So combining, I'm going to take the target. I want to intersect this time because I only want the part of this F that's touching this. I want to do that in reverse order though. I want to take this as my target and this as my tool and intersect. The reason for that is it's going to get rid of the F, but I want it to keep the tool, which is this back body. All right, and I'm going to repeat that for each letter. It's probably a quicker way of doing this, but this is the way we're going to do it for right now. Almost done, guys. All right. So now we have the text in here, but we need to bring it up in the surface. So we can either, let's go ahead and create a component out of this to follow my own advice and make everything organized. So all we did was take these letters basically and conform it to that surface. But now we need to raise them up, and we could take and just move the whole project down. That's one way to do it, but you're going to run into problems to where you might have a really crazy surface and some of the letters will come out more than the others, or like some of the bases I did where it has stuff on the outside. Sometimes just moving stuff isn't the best option. You want to scale it. So we're going to go back and hit Modify Scale. And we're going to select every piece of that body. And we're going to change our point, because right now our point is here. So if we scale this, it's going to scale in this weird direction. We want to make sure we have our point selected at our origin. So that way everything is off of the same origin point. Then we want non-uniform, and we want to scale it in this direction. See what that does now? It's scaling everything kind of a crazy direction here. So basically that was a quick way just to show you guys. Create a nice, weird, non-uniform organic surface. You can do text, other objects, like ribbing or whatever you want on here, and make it kind of conform and follow to that surface. And then you can do other techniques to make this a dual color print and stuff like that, which is where we were when I started. If we go all the way to the end here.
So quick question for you, James. One that came in on the chat was, how do you compensate for, or what's some best rules of thumb when it comes to shrinking and expanding materials? They're, since the two different colors sometimes have different shrink or expansion properties.
Yeah, like if you're printing with ABS, you're going to run into issues with shrinking and expanding. So the best thing is to just be aware of your printing tolerances. If you're printing this in two colors, you don't have to worry about tolerances with something like this because it's going to print in two colors. But if you were going to print these separately and then put these in here, yeah, you would have to set tolerances and stuff like that. Let me show you that real quick. I know we got 4 minutes. But let me show you a quick project. This is just going to be creating a box in a circle. So let me create a quick sketch. That is not a circle. Okay, so this is going to be the hole in the bag. You guys know too, when you're extruding something, you can either put in the exact location you want it, or you can just click on a surface and it will snap to that surface. So that's really handy. Okay, we want this to be a new body. All right, so you're printing two materials, and like you said, you want to be, let me create two components out of that. So two materials, and you want to put the hole in the peg in the hole, basically. What I do is push and pull on the surface. The same thing, you do the print or your tolerance you set up. In this case, we're just going to do -2. Now you have to be careful because if it's on automatic, because this is going off of a sketch, I think it's going to reflect and change this surface as well. It might not. It didn't because we created two components, so we're good there. Sometimes you'll run into problems to where if you make changes to this surface, it'll also reflect and change on this surface. Matter of fact, let me go back and see before I created components if that happens. It's going to be really difficult to see because I have that in the way. All right, so now let's see. All I did was just, I hid the peg, basically. Now it's push and pull on that. So if I push it now or shrink it down to 5, because I'm on automatic, I think, yeah, it also changed the peg. So you guys get what happened there? Because Fusion is guessing that any changes I make to this, because I extruded it off of this, it's probably also going to affect the previous downstreams, which was this peg. So the way to avoid that is to create components. So now if I extrude this, or change it, or whatever, it shouldn't affect my peg. Does that make sense? Also, if you don't have components set up and you run into that problem, or if you notice if you're making changes somewhere and it's affecting other shapes, you can say new offset. And what that's going to do is create a brand new offset in your history right here. So that way, any changes you do on this new offset, it won't affect anything that it was related to. So this way you can set up your 0.2 tolerance or your 0.5 or whatever so that your peg will now fit in the hole. Makes sense. Anybody else have any quick questions about anything? These things go by so quick. I was afraid I didn't have enough material, and we're already an hour in.
Yeah, and I was trying to keep up with all the questions that were coming in too over IM. So, I think, yeah, if you guys have any other questions, I know we only have a minute left. Maybe the last thing, yep, just put your web address up there. So
yeah,
I know a few people asked about that, so I tried to put it in the chat as many times as I could. So.
Yeah, if you guys have any questions about anything, you can let me know or let the guys with Fusion 360 know, and I'm always around. You can tweet me. Everything is Immersedn3D. So social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I just started Facebook and all that stuff. But I'm here in Oviedo, Florida, or Orlando, Florida. Been doing this for about 2 years. Found Fusion about a year and a half ago, and it's been my go-to product. Love it. It's awesome. I love seeing how much it's grown and the direction it's heading. It's a really, really powerful tool. I definitely, everywhere I go, I recommend it. So again, check out the models, see what's out there. If there's something weird on the model and you want to know how it was done or whatever, just shoot me an email or a tweet or something, and I'll do my best to help you out. I make a lot of videos and stuff for friends. If you guys haven't found already the screencast recorder, if you have friends, this is a must. That way you can record what you're doing and just email the link to your friends and they can check out your screencast. So this all the time I'm helping clients out, or helping buddies out who are trying to build stuff for their clients. Okay.
Awesome. Well, James, thank you so much for doing this webcast with us, and hopefully everybody enjoyed it. There's a few comments coming in to say to do more, James. So
I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm always so nervous doing these things, but yeah, they go by so quick.
They do.
Yeah, no. Thank you guys for having me. It's great. I love to help out. So again, if you guys need anything, just let me know.
Yeah. If you guys have any requests, feel free to shoot us an email, either of us, and we'll try to get some more of these on the schedule. I did see somebody had a question wanting to see something on CAM and CNC. There actually is. I think we just posted some new webinars on the Fusion site, so head over there and check them out. So it should be fusion360.autodesk.com, and head over to the community tab, and all the events are going to be there.
Awesome. And also, I can't stress enough, all the stuff I've learned is off of this YouTube site. You guys check it out. There's tons of videos here, a lot of content.
Oh yeah, tons of stuff. And if there is anything that you don't see, let us know, and we'll get started on creating it for you guys too.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.